got my tea. I feel like I can't talk about books without a cup of tea. It just makes sense. It's actually quite hot in here, but I was gonna sit down and talk about books, so I was like, I need to have a cup of tea with it. I don't know why, I just do. Today, I'd like to share with you 7 of the books that have absolutely changed my life. These are books that helped me along my journey of self-discovery and reconnecting to myself and just finding truth. Books are a really great street sign to point you in the right direction, but you have to go there yourself. So although these books that I'm going to talk about were very life-changing to me and have a lot of knowledge and wisdom in them, it's up to you to find that wisdom within yourself. And the book might point you in the right direction and might remind you of those things, but the true understanding will come from within you. With any of these books, I would recommend pairing them with meditation or just in general taking care of yourself and listening to yourself. If you do that, the words in these books will feel much different to you because in the end, they are just words on a piece of paper, and it's not about the words. It's about the message that cannot be said in words. And the words will point you to that message, but it's up to you to realize it yourself. So I would encourage you to first give yourself that time and that space to grow and develop and find truth within yourself. And if you need a reminder, then these books are really great and super life-changing if you give them the time to be. Also, these are in no particular order. I actually had a lot of trouble finding what order to put them in because they all mean so much to me. I will leave little timestamps in the description so that you can see what books I'm going to talk about, and then if there's one that you're interested in, you can kind of go to that book and see what I have to say about it. Let's get started. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. This book was recommended to me a long time ago, and when I finally did read it, it came to me at the perfect time in my life because it was a time that I was rediscovering something that I had forgotten, of just being present in every moment. I had strayed from it for a little bit, and when I read this book, it came to me at the perfect time because it just brought me back to that point of being present in every moment. I would say that this book is perfect for anyone, but it's also really good for people who are just starting out their spiritual journey or are looking for answers or happiness. This book is this step-by-step guide on how to be present in every moment, find enjoyment in every moment, and on the cover it says a guide to spiritual enlightenment. And I thought that was really cheesy when I first saw it, but then when I read the book, I was like, this is actually the guide. So if I'm going to recommend any book to anyone, it's usually this one, because this is a book that absolutely transformed my life and reminded me of something just so much deeper than I had been thinking my whole life. Eckhart Tolle, the author of this book, has written a lot of other books as well, which I actually haven't read yet, but I'm planning on reading. But based on what I have read about his other books, I would say that this is probably the perfect one to start with. So pick up this book, read it, and then if you like the way that he writes, which you probably will, you can try out his other books as well. But this is a really, really, really good one to start with. Ishmael by Quinn. This is a book that was gifted to me several years ago, and I read a couple of years ago, and then I actually gifted it to a friend. So I don't have it on me right now. I actually want to reorder it so that I can lend it out to people and reread it again myself. But this book is insane. It's a book that will make you absolutely speechless, and it may even make you cry. It just completely shatters your perception of the world and our society. It's written as a dialogue. The whole book is a dialogue between a student and a teacher, and the teacher's perspective of our society is from an outsider perspective, so it's an unbiased point of view. And it's really interesting to view our history as a society, view our cultural structure as an outsider, and see what lies in that, because throughout our whole life we're conditioned to stay in this path of conforming to our society, and to read a book that just completely shatters that and breaks that down is absolutely transformative. I remember when I started reading the book because I got to page 16 and I distinctly remember that it was page 16 for whatever reason. And when I got to page 16, I was just like, this book is going to change my life. And it really did. And I haven't read it in so long that I don't remember like all of the specifics of it, but I just remember that the feeling that it left me with. And it's something that I want to read again for sure. So I'll probably pick it up again soon. But I would highly recommend it to anyone who's looking for just something to shatter their world and break down all of the walls that they've built around what their beliefs are. The Pocket Thich Nhat. So rather than a particular book by Thich Nhat, I have a pocketbook, so it's like a compilation of his work. He's a very well-known Buddhist philosopher and monk, and he has a ton of books. So I would recommend you can buy this particular book, but do some research into his books and you'll probably be able to find one that fits your life pretty perfectly because he has so many books. This is a book that I picked up several years ago, and I didn't really know what I was getting myself into, but it just completely changed my life. What I really love about Thich Nhat is that he puts everything so simply. I find sometimes when I read spiritual books, they make everything so complicated. And what I like about his work is that it puts everything the way that it is, which is very, very simple. And when you're reading it, you can feel the soft power of his words. And it's almost like he's next to you and you can feel his energy. Like anytime I pick up that book, it's always a constant reminder to me to be present and to be mindful. And this was the first book that really, really taught me to be mindful and to enjoy every moment. And so I would recommend, if you're going to get a book by him, to savor every single word that he writes. Take it at your own pace, take it slow, and just like every passage, reflect on it. I used to go and sit by a creek and I would meditate and read this book. I would read a passage and then reflect on it for a couple of days or maybe even a week and then move on to the next thing. And I found that there's just so much depth and practice in what he's saying. So it's a really, really, really good book to just follow along with and grow with. And like I said, I read it several years ago, but every single time that I pick up the book and read it, it literally just brings me right back to that moment and just, I have such good things to say about his work. He's a really, really phenomenal author. Because actual truth is so simple, and this book will help you to understand that and really just see it. So if you're getting sick of reading a bunch of spiritual books that make everything seem so complicated and unattainable and you're just not connecting with the material, this book is perfect for you. The Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. So these are actually some teachings that were written in, I believe, the 4th century BC. So they were written a very, very long time ago by the philosopher Lao Tzu, who established the philosophy or religion of Taoism. Mine is just an English translation by Stephen Mitchell, but there's a ton of different English transitions, ton of different books of this actual work. This is one that was gifted to me by a friend, and she underlined a lot of things and wrote a lot of things in it. So this particular book means a lot to me for that reason. I did this book in order next to the Thich Nhat book because it's another one that you want to take your time with. It's formatted into, I believe it's 81 poems, but every single one has so much truth in it, and it's interesting because it's another one of those books that I read a while back and recently picked up and read again, and it grows with you. So a passage that I read 3 years ago meant something completely different than it does now, and I find that every time I come back to the book, I find more depth to it. I don't know if you can hear, but there's birds chirping. It's crazy because this book was written so long ago, and yet it still holds so much truth, not only just eternally, but also in our society. A lot of the poems and stuff that Lao Tzu talks about, it's absolutely beautiful. So pretty much all of the poems in the book talk about the eternal spirit of the universe, also known as the Tao, and and the truth of it, and just, it's hard for me to put it into words how amazing this book is, but it's one that you really just need to pick up for yourself and read it, because like I said, every time that you read it, you'll get something different out of it. And the beautiful thing is that you get exactly what you need out of this book. It goes as deep as you are willing to go, and that is why it is such an eternal book, and why the truth of it has carried on as long as it has. The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. This is another book that I recently lent out to a friend, so I don't have it on me. Actually, funny story, I lent it out to a friend, and then I bought another copy just so that I could lend it out to another friend. So I have bought two copies of this book, and I'm probably going to buy another one at some point to lend to another friend. But this is another really powerful self-discovery book, and it's actually the first spiritual self-discovery book that I ever read. It was the first book that truly made me look at my reality and myself in a different way. It's a book that, for that reason, means a lot to me. It's one that I haven't read in several years, so once again, I don't remember all of the specifics about it, but I just remember the way that it made me feel, and the way that it really just transformed my whole way of thinking. It's all about seeing past your limitations and realizing your true power. And it's actually a very easy book to read and to understand, but I would recommend, if you are going to read it, to give it time and take your time reading it, take your time processing the information. Read a chapter or a part of a chapter and reflect on it for a while, because there's a lot to be found in that, and just reading the information doesn't always make you understand it. You just read it and then you've read it. So I would recommend reading it and reflecting on it and just truly, truly trying to understand it. And whenever you read it, meditating and reflecting on it, it's just, there's a lot to be found in this book. And this was a book that totally liberated me, because it changed the way that I understood things to be, and made me realize that my true potential was much bigger than I thought it was. It explores who you think you are, who you truly are. It explores where your suffering comes from and how to transcend it and transcend everything. This is a truly magical and powerful book for anyone who's willing to give it the time and space to learn from it. The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben. Wohlleben? Yeah. This is a book that I'm actually currently reading. I'm almost done with, but it's one that I knew I needed to include in this because it is so amazing. It's not a self-discovery book like the other books that I mentioned, but it's a book that, if you allow it to, it will absolutely transform the way that you look at the world. It is written by a forester who studies trees, and it talks about the hidden ecosystem within nature and within forests. For example, the consciousness, the community, and the general life of trees beyond what we think it is. It's interesting because this book isn't spiritual. He doesn't talk about spirituality in it, as far as I've read so far, but I'm pretty far in the book, so I'm pretty sure he doesn't. But it's not a spiritual book. However, it totally reimagines the way that you see nature and the way that you see the world, because it's very scientific, the way that trees communicate with each other, the way that trees adapt to certain situations, just things that you aren't used to hearing about and things you might not have known that will totally transform the way that you look at the world. I think it's so important that people read this book, because if you give it the time, it helps you to understand not only why nature is so important, but that there's a lot about it that we don't understand, and for that reason we need to protect it, we need to take care of it. It's just a really fantastic book, and I would recommend it to everyone. The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This is a book that you have most likely heard of before because it's one of the most popular books in the world, but I can't really make a life-changing books video without including this one because it is so powerful and has changed so many people's lives. I like this book because it's a story, first of all, so it's an easy read. It's very quick, so it's kind of accessible to everyone. Within the story is a very deep message of personal growth and discovering your purpose, your potential, and just discovering the truth of the world. I would read the description that they have in the book about it, but I think it's just much more important for you to read it yourself because, like I said, you will get what you need to get out of this book. And throughout your life, if you reread it every couple of years, it'll touch you in a different way and it'll remind you of the same thing, but in a deeper sense. On the back, it says, "To realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation." And that kind of perfectly sums up the book. So if you're feeling lost and you're looking for something to guide you back, this book is a really, really good reminder of that and just an amazing story in general. So if you haven't read that book yet, I would highly recommend it. So those are my 7 books that absolutely changed my life. If there's any books that you've read that have changed your life or made you look at the world in a different way, go ahead and leave me a comment and let me know below. If you feel called to read any of the books, I just want you to pick it up and read it, and I want you to find what it has for you inside of it. I can say a lot of words about what the book meant to me, but it will mean something different to everyone who reads it. So I would just highly recommend trying out any of these books and finding what it is you need to find in them. Thank you again for watching. If you'd like to, you can follow me on Instagram or you can subscribe to me here on YouTube for more videos like this to come. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day today.